nobody there. Sky is falling, metal rain, chaos mornings, no one's sane. Crumbling towers, streets in flames, forgotten heroes, who knows their names. Broken futures, shattered dreams, end of times ain't what it seems.
Hello friends, this is Sam Chaney reporting for Weaponized News. Today's July 21st, 2026. Thank you for joining us on this Tuesday edition of Weaponized News. Quite a bit to get to today. We're bombing Iran right now. As this show's going live a half hour ago, or thereabouts, U.S. Central Command announced forces began striking military targets in Iran at 7 p.m. Eastern Time today for the 11th consecutive night. The strikes are designed to continue degrading Iran's ability to threaten commercial shipping in the Strait of Hormuz. U.S. intelligence community says that there's no military solution to Iran. We're going to cover that report. Hegseth was in the Senate today begging for more money to flush down the black hole known as the Pentagon. He was interrupted by some anti-war protesters. We have that. Sadly and tragically enough, another dead U.S. soldier's been announced. They released the name. We'll cover that. Some footage has come out of our base there. I believe this in Jordan, blowing up. Take a look at that. Yeah, Hegseth says they're running the Department of War like a business. I believe that's true. They're stealing as much as they possibly can from the American people and putting us in harm's way and laughing about it all the way to the bank. They definitely need new accountants at the Pentagon. They can't pass a financial audit. We're shooting $3-4 million missiles, and Iran's taking them out with $20,000, $30,000 drones. So their accounting is way off. They don't care because we have the dollar, the world reserves currency. It's coming to an end fast, and they're doing everything they can. Pedal to the metal. Pedal to the metal to collapse. We got all that news, all the ins and outs of Iran war. We have Epstein news as per usual, a bunch of economic news, a bunch of geopolitical news, Lebanon and Gaza, demolition, genocide continues there. Now they're trying to refocus us back on Cuba. We'll also cover the quasi-secret, not so secret, but nobody seems to notice or nobody seems to care, war on drugs going on in Mexico, Central, and South America. All that and much more on this Tuesday edition of Weaponized News. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. I see a few people coming online right now. I see Ruckus over there in the YouTube. Shout out to Ruckus. Thank you for joining us. Strong on the Rumble. Shout out to Strong. Strong says, hey, Sam, are you aware that I'm not following the pumpings, honestly, there? I told you, Strong, send me an email. Come on the show. And we'll do a whole market, financial, economic section if you feel so inclined. All right, let's get to this day in history. We have a lot of news today. Okay, on this day in history, let's not forget, when we look at our satanic dark occultist calendar, July 20th, all this week through the 26th, leading up to the grand climax, the dark occultists are carrying out rituals that involve abduction, ceremonial preparation, and holding of sacrificial victims for the grand climax on July 27th. You better believe and know that's going on. All right, on this date in our history of July 21st, we go all the way back to the year 365. An earthquake on Crete, followed by a tsunami around the eastern Mediterranean, allegedly destroys Alexandria on this day in the year 365. Then we fast way forward in history on this day to 1730. States of Holland put death penalty on sodomy. Talk about, I don't even want to get into the jokes here. 1798 on this day, and I did not know this until I read my This Day in Histories. 1798 on this day, we saw the Battle of the Pyramids. Napoleon Bonaparte wins Battle of Pyramids in Egypt against Mamluk rulers, wiping out most of the Egyptian army. The Battle of the Pyramids on this day, 1798. 1846 on this day, we saw Mormons found the first English settlement in California, in the San Joaquin Valley, where I'm at. And I know there's a lot of bad talk about Mormons. I have some Mormon friends. There's a lot of bad talk, Mormons, this, that, and other. They're a cult, they're abusing, and there's bad in everything. But the one good thing I want to say about the Mormons is they are good preppers, all right? They're good preppers. So the Mormons would be your best friend if it all goes down in that regard, is all I'm saying. So don't bash the Mormons too much, all right? 1853 on this day, Central Park in New York created when New York State Legislature puts aside more than 750 acres of land on Manhattan Island. On this day, 1861, First Battle of Bull Run, Battle of First Manassas, the first major battle of the U.S. Civil War, is fought near Manassas, Virginia, and ends in a Confederate victory on this day, 1861. 1865, in Springfield's Market Square in Missouri, Wild Bill Hickok shoots and kills Davis Tutt in what is regarded as the first true Western showdown. On this day in 1873, Jesse James and James Younger gang commits its first train robbery in Adair, Iowa. On this day in 1877, the U.S. Army breaks up a railroad strike. On this day in 1904, after 13 years, the 4,607-mile stretch of the Trans-Siberian Railway is completed. We can't even complete 300 miles here in California of the high-speed rail due to corruption. Thank you, Gavin Newsom and Democrats in California. We appreciate it. And all the other corrupt politicians in between. 1925 on this day, Scopes monkey trial. John T. Scopes is found guilty of teaching evolution in the Scopes monkey trial in Dayton, Tennessee. He's fined $100 and costs of the trial. 1930, on this day, the U.S. Veterans Administration forms, and then they went on to go ahead and deny disability claims by veterans injured in their foreign wars. We do appreciate their efforts in that regard. 1949, on this day, U.S. Senate ratifies North Atlantic Treaty by a vote of 82 to 13, NATO. And now proudly NATO's running around bragging how many Russians they kill. And so we do appreciate those efforts. 1970, On this day, Libya orders confiscation of all aardvark property. 2021, on this day, life expectancy in the United States falls by 1.5 years, 3 years for Hispanic Americans, 2.9 years for Black Americans, the largest decline in life expectancy since World War II. And it had, I'm sure it had nothing to do with a novel medical intervention that was introduced. Nothing to do with that whatsoever. Because we ignore in science the evidence that's right in front of our face. On this day in our civil liberties history, we go back to the year 1934. FDR's New Deal has mixed civil liberties record, says the ACLU. In its 1934 annual report released on this day, the ACLU argued that President Franklin Delano Roosevelt and his New Deal had a mixed record on civil liberties. On the positive side, there had been no wholesale suspension of civil liberties during World War II, as there had been during World War I. The main reason was that it was a popular war with no significant opposition to suppress. The ACLU also praised the New Deal's policies toward Native Americans and illegal aliens, along with President Roosevelt's pardon on December 23rd, 1933, that restored the political rights of people convicted under the Espionage Act during World War I. The most positive contribution to civil liberties was Roosevelt's appointment to the Supreme Court, which quickly created the pro-civil liberties Roosevelt Court. On the negative side, however, FDR did not support civil rights bills in Congress because he felt he needed the votes of Southern segregationist members of Congress. He also did not support organized labor and even tried to undermine the congressional approval of the Wagner Act, which proved to be the, quote, Magna Carta for labor, guaranteeing workers the right to unionize. And on August 24th, 1936, he authorized the FBI to resume political spying, which it had ended on May 13th, 1924, on orders from Attorney General Harlan Fiske Stone. In retrospect, Roosevelt's overall civil liberties record from 1933 to 1945 was very mixed. On the one hand, he perpetuated one of the worst civil liberties violations in American history, the evacuation and internment of Japanese American citizens during World War II. Roosevelt authorized the tragedy by executive order on February 19, 1942. Yeah, no big deal. Just put Japanese Americans in concentration camps. On the positive side, his appointment to the Supreme Court created the first civil liberties court, the Roosevelt Court, in American history. I think the bad outweighs the good here. Yeah, we covered it at the very beginning. We're bombing Iran right now as this show's live for the 11th consecutive night. Here's anti-war protesters interrupting what do you do with a drunken Hegseth, begging for money from the Senate. And here's that segue to the news.
Base budget request. 1.5 trillion.
Mr. Secretary, please suspend until order is restored in the hearing room. We will begin the timing clock since you've been interrupted twice.
Yeah, they're killing people. They're killing. That was I believe, Code Pink protesting the killing of children. killing of U.S. soldiers here. Department of War announced that Sergeant Michael Emmanuel Swinton, 30 years old, was killed in action 2 days ago, July 19th, during a controlled detonation of a downed one-way drone at the Erbil Air Base in Iraq. Another fallen U.S. soldier there, tragically enough, horrifically enough. Here, it's alleged this fallen soldier, Isabel Gonzalez, was reported yesterday, and it's alleged they're mocking her on Aardvark Telegram group. Alleged Aardvark Telegram group goes viral for ridiculing the death of 19-year-old U.S. soldier Isabel Gonzalez. No sympathy, only mockery, with the caption, "This is the price for Trump's betrayal." The reaction under the post speak for themselves. And they're all laughing about a dead U.S. soldier there, our greatest allies. I know. Don't be an antiseptic. Just bend over and take it. The aftermath of Iranian strikes on U.S. military facility. I think this is the Jordan base. This is the Clash reporter. Pretty sure this is one of the bases in Jordan. Here's some video of the aftermath, creating an apocalyptic hellscape of our U.S. bases in the region. Iran leveled the joint. Yeah, they leveled the joint, and there's some more here. Still images, aftermath of Iran's strike. For what I'm hearing, we're getting projected impact data, but the missiles are changing trajectory multiple times in flight, so the projected impact warnings are no good. Wow. Targeting data is obviously getting fed to Iran from China or Russia, because where they are impacting, what they are targeting is insanely precise. Join FOG, travel to exotic places, meet interesting people, and kill them. Wow, that's a crazy sign right there. But more of the destruction of our bases. Yeah. They're blowing up our bases there. MTG tells Trump, "Go F yourself," over posting the Iranian death toll. Now Trump's trying to rationalize with the other wars. MTG says Trump is bragging about killing 18 U.S. soldiers. That's how I read this stupid post. The peace president went to war and is killing and wounding our troops. Trump posted, Afghanistan war, 20 years, 2,000 dead. Iraq war, 9 years, 4,600 dead. Vietnam war, 19 years and 5 months, 58,222 dead. Korean war, 3 years, 1 month, 36,574 dead. Venezuela war, 1 day, no dead. And Iran military conflict, 4 months and 8 dead. Here's Hegseth admitting the Department of War, they're running it like a business. War is a racket. All wars are bankers' wars.
The Pentagon is no longer run by bureaucrats. Instead, it's led by combat-tested veterans and world-class business leaders who are running the department like a business. And
well, they're bankrupting the joint, so good job. I guess when you have when you have black books, essentially, then yeah, they haven't passed a financial audit in since 2008 when it was mandated. Hegseth has promised at the end of next fiscal year, 2027, they're going to pass it. They're not. No one will be held accountable as per usual. And so that's no way to run a business. That they don't care because there's no accountability. Here he is begging for another $1.5 trillion.
That means 1.5 trillion, given the world that we live in and the disaster of what the Biden administration budgets gave us. Not funding this department at 1.5 trillion, I believe, is the greatest threat that our nation faces. Either we invest in our warriors at this moment of step change on the battlefield and growing threats, or this is all just.
Again, they haven't passed a financial audit. They can't pass a financial audit. The auditor said their books are unauditable. But yeah, give them another $1.5 trillion that they can't account for any of the money since 2018.
If we left today, it would take them decades to rebuild. And I don't believe they could ever rebuild. And honestly, they haven't seen anything yet. We've been nice.
I don't know if that's true. We've seen them rebuild bridges, rebuild rail lines in a few days, honestly. The latest round of strikes, I don't know, honestly. But the previous, before this current, was it 9-day run or 11-day run, excuse me, 11 consecutive nights of strikes. The previous, they rebuilt pretty damn fast. They did. They had the old puppet president of Lebanon there today at the White House. Here's more from Hegseth at that meeting with Trump and the president of Lebanon.
Something no president's been willing to do. 47 years, they build up a conventional capability like the North Koreans did. Remember, that's how North Korea made their way to a bomb. So much weaponry that no one was willing to stand up to them. President Trump was, and continues to this day. Iran's been given every opportunity to negotiate, to show that they're reasonable on the Strait of Hormuz. But if they're going to shoot at commercial shipping, then we're going to hit them, as the president said, 10 times harder, which every night we're degrading them further and further. And the president has all the options necessary. If they want to talk, they can talk. Otherwise, they can deal with the War Department, and we're prepared to do that.
More from Hegseth. They say it every day. We've defeated Iran.
Iran is at the weakest point militarily it has ever been in the past decade. Certainly, maybe in 47 years, as they've gathered effectively a terror army. And that terror army was built to try to create conventional capability to defend against a pursuit of nuclear weapons, which meant thousands of ballistic missiles, many of which we have destroyed, others of which they have put inside facilities and hidden in underground facilities. That's what terror regimes would do. So I acknowledge they still have capabilities, no doubt. But the amount of damage that we've done to them over the course of these series of operations has put them in the worst place they've ever been.
Terror regimes hide their weapons. How many secret bases does America have? Just saying. Here's a Joint Chiefs of Staff Chairman Dan Kane begging for the money too.
I've come today to ask for your help and your support. America's armed forces need $1.5 trillion to meet the military challenges of the future. This supplemental is a part of that. And to be allowed to use this capital to pay for military personnel operations and maintenance expenses, and accelerate investments on critical technologies, as the Secretary just mentioned. It is critical that we stay ahead of our adversaries, and we must have the funds before we're out of time.
It's always urgent. Oh my gosh. Got to beat China. Here's Joseph Anoun, president of Lebanon. See if we could spy a Freemason handshake here. Nah, I don't know. It looks pretty straight there. Allegedly, that guy's he was a high up army dude in Lebanon. Now he's a puppet of America. Trump says after meeting with the president of Lebanon, who has done a remarkable job working to transform his country, I'm hereby directing my administration to allow all U.S. airline carriers to fly directly to Lebanon so that Americans can easily visit this beautiful land. Like, what world are you in, Trump? They're bombing the hell out of Lebanon right now. Who the hell wants to go to Lebanon? I swear, they act like we don't have access to international news. We don't have access to independent reporting from Lebanon, and just believe the lying freaking Department of War asking for $1.5 trillion. It's pretty damn absurd, if you ask me. The IRGC said earlier today tactical radar systems in Salmon Base and Buaya Island taken out of operation as part of the ongoing efforts to clear the region of radar systems. Remember back the first round when they were claiming that these radar systems were being also used for weather manipulation, weather warfare? Remember all that? I do. The propaganda from IRGC Public Relations says the heroic and anti-oppression Iranian nation, with the grace of God and your prayers, stands firm in the field in continuation of the second wave of Operation Nasser II, and as part of the ongoing efforts to clear the region of radar systems. IRGC fighters attacked and destroyed an early warning radar and tactical radar system near Al Salim base and another radar system in Bud Ayan Island in Kuwait, effectively taking these systems out of operation. The operation to punish the aggressor continues, and there is no victory except from God, the Almighty, the Wise. And of course, this is the IRGC flag. And there you go. Iranian's former foreign minister, Mottaki, said they have used the rhetoric of a ground operation, whereas we possess the actual ground capability, which they lack. This ground capability means we can go and seize one of the American bases. This can be easily accomplished in Iraq, Kuwait, and Bahrain. In Iraq, these supporters are present for the American bases there, and they will enter the fray as well as for Kuwait. A massive group of Iraqi people will join in. Some of their operations against Kuwait were related to this. Kuwait is now openly stating that such actions are being taken. Therefore, I believe that seizing one of these bases, capturing 200 prisoners, and occupying the base would completely disarm America and prevent it from continuing the war. They had 40 million, whatever, turnout there in Iran and Iraq for old man Khomeini's funeral. Just saying. Dropsite News says, Jeremy Scahill, he says, the 3 M's against Trump. Iran believes 3 factors are working in its favor against the United States and Trump's war effort: munitions, markets, and the midterms. Yeah. Trump's pretty much said he doesn't care. He doesn't care about the economy. So have fun with the Democrats winning the midterms. The IRGC claims it destroyed Amazon data infrastructure in Bahrain with cruise missiles. Major step forward. French lawmakers approved social media ban for children under the age of 15. France's parliament earlier today approved a social media ban for children under 15. President Macron immediately hailed the major step forward, saying that France is leading the way in Europe when it comes to protecting our children and teenagers. And of course, nothing about they'll feed you. They want to, harvest the children's adrenochrome, for crying out loud. So they could give a damn about the children. It's about censorship and information control, obviously, there. Weird here coming out of the Department of Public Health, HHS. They're now announcing they have a TikTok channel on TikTok. Here's a weird video out of HHS, Bobby Kennedy Jr. That's bizarre. We've had no accountability for the bat times. All the bat that they did to us. No accountability. So it's falling on deaf ears here. Maha. Trump administration is pausing more than $1 billion in Medicaid payments to California and Minnesota due to suspected fraud and non-compliance. Let's hear that announcement earlier today.
CMS is pausing more than $1 billion in federal Medicaid payments to California and to Minnesota because of suspected fraud and non-compliance. That includes more than $867 million for California and over $200 million for Minnesota. If those states want that money, they need to provide documentation that these payments are legitimate.
The entire system's a fraud, but okay. We're blasting through the news today. On to the Epstein section. I guess the Tates fall in that section now as well. Andrew Tate will be charged with rape, sex trafficking, and pornography, including charges related to indecent images of a child, according to a report out of UK Telegraph. Flashback here. Trump slams his own supporters as stupid people for falling for what he calls the Epstein hoax. Remember that? Epstein survivors accuse Attorney General candidate appointed by Trump trying to get confirmed by the Senate to be Attorney General right now, Todd Blanche, of gaslighting in opposition letter. Let's watch this short report. Yeah, they should not confirm Todd Blanche.
Dead. Listen to the back and forth he got into with Blanche on this issue.
Like I said, Senator, and Senator Durbin talked about this, but I've talked extensively with you and other colleagues about potentially codifying so there's no weaponization fund, which is certainly something that could be done. And I wasn't meaning to insult this body, but just that in response to questions from senators about whether that could be done, we very much are okay with that.
And so Senator Cornyn telling reporters after that exchange with Blanche, he was not really satisfied with the answers, and he is not committing to supporting Blanche when he comes up.
They got a problem with Cornyn, who lost his primary there in Texas, so he don't give a damn. He's a lame duck. He's not going to be reelected. And also Tillis, I believe, is not running. I forget all the details, but he's a lame duck too, so he don't give a damn. And so those are the two Republican senators here now asking a bunch of questions, as they should, doing their job. The rest are just puppets that rubber stamp Trump tyranny. Now, more acting and theatrics out of the House Oversight Committee. The Republicans, the head of it, head Republican Comer, threatens to subpoena Alan Dershowitz after he refuses to testify to the House Oversight Committee in regards to Epstein. So they all run around. They run around and act like they don't. They scream law and order, but then they act like they say, "Well, we're above the law," essentially, but law and order for you. And you jaywalk or spit on the sidewalk, they're going to throw the book at you. But these guys rape, murder, kill, death, destruction, and it's all A-OK. Don't be an antiseptic. The Gates Foundation met with Epstein about 30 times despite staff concerns. An external review says, there you go. Bill Gates, our doctor during the bad times, knew nothing, knew of no wrongdoings. The roughly 30 meetings which took place from 2011 to 2014, including several visits to Epstein's Manhattan townhouse and meetings on the Gates Foundation campus, according to the review by law firm Wilmer Hale, the review found no evidence that the foundation paid Epstein or did anything illegal. The foundation released a 3-page summary of Wilmer Hale's report earlier today and did not say if it would release any further details. So they investigated themselves and found no wrongdoing at the Gates Foundation. Epstein victim tried contracting an STD in hopes it would kill Epstein. Let's watch this short report.
You've told me that you thought this is not going to end until he dies.
Correct. I ran around New York City as a child, trying to get an STD to kill a pedophile because I didn't believe the government would ever stop him. That wasn't my job to stop him.
I don't know. Would a STD have killed him? It'd have to be something pretty serious. Let's see a little bit more from Rosa Gillis. Was an 18-year-old model when Epstein first abused her while he was serving jail time. Play a little bit of this clip from CNN report about it here.
Come on. Pull-ups. Come on, Danny, let's go. Today is the day. Come on. What people know me for is a daughter, a sister, a wife, a coach. You would see me on the street and you'd never think that twice.
Before dominating the fitness world, Rosa Gillis, a 4-time national CrossFit champion from Uzbekistan, began her career as a teenage model.
I was really tall and skinny, and I was like kind of awkward looking girl.
In 2008, Rosa signed a modeling contract with MC², the agency founded by French agent Jean-Luc Brunel. After moving to New York City in May 2009, she immediately owed the agency money for her visa and rent.
Your debt is just growing and growing.
Totaling over 10 grand by the end of the summer. As an 18-year-old girl, it's scary.
That summer, Rosa was sent to West Palm Beach for photo shoots at Jeffrey Epstein's mansion. She learned soon enough the power that Epstein had over her modeling career.
He goes like, I'm financing the agency. I gave him $1 million to start the agency.
Later that summer, as Rosa was struggling to book modeling jobs, Epstein made her an offer.
You should come to my office in West Palm Beach or downtown Palm Beach, and you work for me as a secretary. What I was told, all I do is pick up the phone and say, Florida Science Foundation, may I help you?
Unbeknownst to Rosa, Epstein had just pled guilty in Florida to soliciting prostitution from a minor. He was serving jail time on a work release program. The first weekend at Epstein's office, Rosa was asked by another woman to massage Epstein's feet.
He gives me his foot, and I'm looking at his foot, and he has an ankle monitor on. But to me, what it looks like, he has a plastic thing wrapped around his foot with a black box on it with a blinking light, right? And I go, what is this? And he flips around and he goes, take off your shirt. I froze. And the woman comes over and starts unbuttoning my blouse. She takes it off. Then she takes off my bra. And then she walks out. I sat in that room, staring at the bottle of a Fiji water while a man was groping me and masturbating. And then when he was done, he stood up and he left. I couldn't scream. I didn't ask for help. And I thought this was all a dream. I sat back at the table and I answered the phone calls same exact way I did before. I never told any soul about this. I thought I'm going to die if I do.
Rosa says Epstein abused her in Florida every weekend after that. She is still haunted by an encounter she had one morning at Epstein's mansion with a man in uniform, someone she thought was a sheriff.
I thought to myself, thank you. This is going to be the day that this all stops. Followed, the sheriff walked in, Jeffrey. They giggled, they laughed together, they buddied it up. I just stood in the kitchen looking at this sheriff, thinking to myself, at some point he's gonna turn to me and be like, who are you? And he walked out.
Didn't say anything to you?
Nothing. And then I figured it all out. He's currently serving his sentence while he's doing the same thing to everybody, and nobody's there to help us.
But the FBI can't find, and the DOJ can't find any evidence. Here's old Paula Luna, PSYOP congresswoman. She says that we're never going to have the full Epstein files because the FBI was hacked.
I was also literally the only member of Congress leading the charge on declassification of the Jeffrey Epstein files in January of last year. Mm-hmm. And then ultimately what I saw, and this could probably be an entire new segment between you and I on like what actually transpired, but, you know, we uncovered destruction of evidence under the former deputy director of the FBI. I had documented that, no one paid attention. I was pressing Attorney General Pam Bondi for the release of the Epstein files, publicly calling for its release. And then at a certain point, it then became political. And then, you know, we have been conducting the investigations and oversight, but the fact is what the American people are not hearing is that we are never going to have the full files because there was actively a cyber attack that occurred when Ghislaine Maxwell and Jeffrey Epstein were under investigation in New York. And people seem to forget that that happened. So I actually don't think that we have the full deck of cards here specifically pertaining to Jeffrey Epstein. And I was actually in the room with members of Congress, both Democrat and Republican, the Speaker of the House, and then some of the victims and the victims' attorneys when...
What a load of bullshit. You ever heard of backing up your data? And still, even if it's true, that level of incompetence, no one gets in trouble. Back the blue, bro. Pretty amazing. On to the economic section. The Trump economy is doing better than the media want to admit. The White House posts. Fox News article. Ridiculous. Main Street knows. We have to go grocery shopping. We have to put food on the table. We have to put fuel in our vehicles and so on and so forth to eke out a meager existence. The economy's shit. It's horrific. The inflation is out of control. But it doesn't matter because we have to beat our rivals in all these made up
Arizona,
races.
Today is your day.
President Trump's following a simple logic. The military requires a generational investment to deliver on peace through strength. We know the best way to create peace is to prepare for war.
That's Orwellian bullshit. We need a generational investment for peace through strength.
To deter it. And that's exactly what the Department of War is doing, building a force so capable that it would be absurd for anyone to challenge it. As the direct result of neglected priorities and gross negligence that ignored threats left over from the previous administration, President Trump inherited a set of global and domestic crises, deferred maintenance almost across the board. Instead of steering the ship through gathering storms, former leaders let our military languish through social experiments and globalist appeasement, sheer weakness. Under President Trump, we have built a different type of department. The Pentagon is no longer run by bureaucrats. Instead, it's led by combat-tested veterans and world-class business leaders who are running the department like a business.
FCC says the Trump administration is cracking down on scams and frauds. So they've decided to all turn themselves into the FEMA camps. Oh, no. No. That would never happen, would it? It's what should happen if they were honest on cracking down on scams and frauds. They'd all turn themselves in because they're all scams and frauds. He went on to say, pleased to join Secretary Bissett and FTC Chairman Ferguson today as we convened leading telecom and tech providers to combat the scourge of illegal robocalls. They always say that, right? But yet there's still a million of these BS spam calls. Billions upon billions of scam calls and texts are now getting blocked, and we are accelerating the process to build and scale new solutions. I hope they do something about all these spammer calls. That's for sure. But I have a sneaking suspicion the more they turn the screws on everything's digital, whether it's hacked. I don't even believe that. They're selling our data. They're selling our data. Okay, continuing here. The economy's great, according to the War Channel, Fox News, and the White House. Trump, they're lying criminals. But according to Main Street and the rest of the world out here, it's quite horrific. Longtime ESPN announcer axed after 33 years. We had a 33 there. We had to go ahead and mention. Report out of Bloomberg, the surge in market leverage stemming in part from the massive growth of leveraged exchange traded products, retail margin accounts, and hedge fund deposits at prime brokers is stoking worries that it may exacerbate the next crisis. The demand to borrow money has driven an unusual mid-year spike in financing costs, which have reached the highest levels since December of 2024. 90% of American adults under the age of 40 say buying a home now is harder than it was for their parents, according to Pew Research. But they say, hey, just, don't drink that Starbucks coffee and stop eating lunch, breakfast, and dinner. And then you can save up, even though inflation is destroying any savings you have. And somehow, some way, in this corrupt economy, you may become housed. Again, Iran's IRGC claimed that it launched cruise missiles at Amazon's central data infrastructure in Bahrain. That was reported by CNBC. Is the IRGC, they have before, in the last round, they're targeting technocracy. Treasury Secretary Bissett said, with government stakes in companies, we are trying to create market signals. They're literally rigging everything. A merger of corporate and government interest is fascism. Trump to add fresh tariffs on dozens of countries as soon as this week, with his temporary 10% global tariff scheduled to expire on Friday, according to the Financial Times. Trump is overhauling federal science funding by directing the roughly $200 billion annual research budget away from traditional university grants and toward artificial intelligence and individual scientists, according to the Wall Street Journal. 5 tech giants are hiding $1.65 trillion in AI debt. The Next Web reports here now, using the trick that toppled Enron. 5 of the biggest U.S. tech giants are carrying $1.65 trillion in debt that does not show up on their balance sheets. More than the debt that does. It is bankrolling the AI data center boom. It is perfectly legal, and it uses the same accounting trick that brought down Enron. This article goes on to say, look at what Alphabet, Microsoft, Amazon, Meta, and Oracle officially owe, and the numbers seem large but manageable. Look off the books, and a second bigger pile of debt appears. A Nikkei study put the hidden figure at $1.65 trillion, up roughly 8-fold in 4 years. It is more than the $1.35 trillion the 5 report outright. The money tied up in off-balance sheet vehicles, the same kind of structure Enron used to hide debt before it collapsed 25 years ago. Back then, it was fraud. Now, tightened rules and fuller disclosure make it legal. The tools are still there, though. Enron's crime wasn't having special purpose vehicles. Analyst Gil Laria told Bloomberg Law Enron's crime was hiding them. How it works. The mechanics are simple. A company packages the debt for chips, servers, and power into a separate legal entity, often a joint venture, so the cost never flows through its own accounts. Take Meta's Hyperion data center in Louisiana. Meta and Blue Owl Capital both put equity into a separate structure that took on $27 billion in debt. Meta is the sole tenant, yet argues it does not have to record the debt because it is not the one who must find replacement tenants. Oracle has $260 billion of future lease commitments that will eventually land on its books. NVIDIA carries $119 billion in purchase obligations. Alphabet and Microsoft keep their vehicles off the books too. The numbers behind the boom, the scale is the story. Meta's off-balance sheet debt alone is about $420 billion, nearly triple its reported debt. Oracle's has grown roughly 30-fold in 4 years. They should have said 33-fold, right? 30-fold in 4 years. It is all in service of the same race. The industry expected to spend more than $3 trillion through 2028 building and equipping AI data centers, much of it financed against the chips inside of them. Why it matters now, the timing is awkward. 4 of the 5 report earnings in the next 2 weeks, and the reported debt will look tidy. The 1.65 trillion sitting in the footnotes will not make the headlines. The catch is what happens later when a data center goes live. Its lease rolls onto the balance sheet at once. If AI demand falls short, the facility is marked down and the loss lands on the lenders and insurers who funded it. So some already see the risk. S&P has cut Oracle's credit rating over stretched leverage, and both Morgan Stanley and Moody's have flagged the wider issue. What if one of these companies was a house of cards? Asked accounting consultant Tom Sells, and was propping itself up with this accounting treatment. Well, they obviously want us to lose the AI race to China, right? National security. Too big to fail, too big to jail. Privatize the gains and socialize the losses in this techno-fascistic economy they've created of fraud and off-balance sheet debt. Obviously, none of it's sustainable. They don't care. They're attempting to build out the surveillance state and bring about autonomous, weaponized Terminator-style robots to deal with anybody that says you're accounting fraud, apparently. Wowzers. What a giant disaster is right on the horizon here for us. Energy Department says U.S. oil reserve can run far lower than the industry assumed. As the U.S. Strategic Petroleum Reserve drains to its lowest level in 40 years and confronted with Wall Street alarm over shrinking supplies, a Department of Energy spokesman told Market Watch that the reserve's true operational minimum set by caravan mechanics is roughly 70 million barrels, well under the 250 to 300 million barrels the industry has generally treated as the practical limit. By that measure, officials say around 246 million barrels remain available for emergencies. I hope so, man, because we're in a freaking emergency right now. The resurgence comes as the Strategic Petroleum Reserve has shed more than 104 million barrels since the beginning of the Iran war, February 28th of this year, falling 5.1 million in the week ending last week, July 20th, to 311.4 million barrels, the lowest level since 1983, as Washington releases crude to offset losses in the Strait of Hormuz. Meanwhile, the Energy Department said, oh, we already covered that. Yeah, I don't know. They lie about everything. Rockefeller oil oligarchs are price gouging us. AAA national average for the price of a gallon of gasoline is now at $4.02, going up 2 cents from yesterday. You can see it right here. Steadily increasing. And then the total consumer cost burden of the Iran war, according to Brown University Watson School of International and Public Affairs. Let's take a look at their tracker. They're saying total consumer cost burden since the beginning of the Iran war, $71.8 billion. I believe it's more than that, but that's what the number they're going with. Since the beginning of the war, February 28, 2026, and the cost burden per U.S. household spread across both gasoline and diesel is now up to $548.23. You can see right there. All right, let's take our live commercial break. Give me the like, share, subscribe, push that notification button. We covered a lot of news there in the first hour. We blasted through quite a bit. Give me the like, share, subscribe, push that notification button. Thank you those tuning in on this Tuesday edition of Weaponized News. Everybody go to weaponizednews.com/shop. Get yourself a holograph sticker, a white background sticker, a clear sticker. weaponizednews.com/shop. The link's in the description below. We take donations as well. Buy me a coffee, Bitcoin wallet address, Cash App links all in the description right down there below this video. Become a paid subscriber at Weaponized News Substack. We give away everything free, nothing beyond a paywall. Show your support for independent reporting and analysis brought to you 5 days a week, broadcasting live Monday through Friday, 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 Eastern time. Become a paid subscriber at Weaponized News Substack. We're streaming live on Substack now. You'll get the full show. You'll get a summary of the show and links to almost everything we talk about for further research purposes and documentation purposes. Show your support for independent reporting and analysis. weaponizednews.com/shop. Become a paid subscriber at Weaponized News Substack. Again, everything's free. Become a free subscriber, but we do appreciate the paid subscribers helping us pay some bills I put a lot of time, effort, energy into this. We have overhead to make this whole program possible for you. So any which way you choose to support us is truly appreciated. We're growing by leaps and bounds until they rug us again on the big tech, on Facebook, on YouTube, where I wouldn't even be on there. That's where the audience is. So that's where I am. Okay. And so we're growing by leaps and bounds there, but we still need those likes, shares, and subscribes. So keep all that going. Keep us growing, and we'll keep shooting you straight and telling you how it is. I know most of the time it's not good news, but hey, we got to be adults and face up to reality and not live in some delusional fantasy land of MAGA or whatever other ridiculous political movements are out there. The government's an organized crime syndicate. Thank you for your attention to that matter. And welcome back on this Tuesday, July 21st, 2026 edition of Weaponized News. Welcome to the second half. The Strait of Hormuz, I guess we're police of the Strait of Hormuz. It's essentially closed. There's a little bit of traffic trickling through. On one end, America has the gun. The other end, Iran has the gun. Kind of risky business driving through that neighborhood with big guns pointed all over the place. Windward AI says 15 crossings through the Strait of Hormuz yesterday, 11 inbound and 4 outbound. Pre-war, it was 140 vessels per day. So again, this is a part. Let's watch this little clip from Windward about the Strait of Hormuz. Very short. No audio here. 3 tanker strikes in 48 hours. Iran pushing to force all traffic through the northern corridor under its permission. Yeah, so you don't follow the rules, then they whack you. On both sides. Very dangerous. And like what, 25% of petroleum, all these other inputs, fertilizer, all these other inputs into critical industries that make the world go round are essentially shut down. At the beginning of all this, the UN had estimated millions are going to starve to death in the third and fourth worlds because of this. Tens of millions of others are going to be forced into poverty. So it gets worse every day. And we haven't even seen the repercussions of the beginning of this whole thing. And it keeps getting worse and worse by the day. Saudi tankers turn tail in the Red Sea amid Yemeni blockade. 2 tankers carrying Saudi Arabian crude to China and India reversed course in the Red Sea earlier today after the Yemeni armed forces warned shipping companies against loading or unloading cargo at Saudi ports. Here it is. Let's take a look at the map here. So Strait of Hormuz right here, right? This is shut down essentially. All the trade coming from here, all zero essentially. And oh yeah, they shut this down too now. So all of this, all coming out of here that you thought you were going to go around here and zoom out. You thought you were going to cruise over to India, thought you were going to cruise over to China, thought you were going to cruise around here, do all these deliveries. Not so much. Not much is getting out of there. So this is shut down. This is shut down now, essentially. Hashtag winning the war. And it's by design. Let's hear war veteran and war correspondent Michael Yawn here now with Ben Swan give a little bit of a breakdown about the engineered global energy crisis. It's not just there in West Asia, in the Persian Gulf, or the Arabian Sea, I guess we could call it, and these different straits, the Red Sea and the Strait of Hormuz. It's not just there, it's everywhere.
No, in fact, again, when Nord Stream was attacked, which I had predicted in writing many times in advance. In fact, I went to the BASF plant in Ludwigshafen, Germany, twice before the Nord Stream attack. My wife Masako and I went there specifically because we thought Nord Stream would be attacked. In fact, we were publishing that. And in fact, we bought an iPad that there was a website where you could track how many cubic meters per second were flowing through the pipelines to Nord Stream. And there we were, 14 days before the attack on Nord Stream. We were at the BASF plant in Ludwigshafen, and then boom. I have two suspects on who blew up Nord Stream. It was either the United States or space aliens. It's quite clear who's doing it. Now, keep in mind, that's not all just an attack on Russia/Germany, because that doesn't fit the fact pattern. In a broader fact pattern, for instance, the Groningen gas field was also shut down, right? Yes. Or the screwworms here, or so many farmers around the world that are unrelated to the Russia-Ukraine war or the Iran war, being knocked off their farms. So this is about population reduction, including, and not only that, but the famines will create a lot of HOP, human osmotic pressure. Human osmotic pressure is the push and pull of migration. So this HOP that's going to be coming, a lot of these channels for immigration, quote unquote, actually invasion, are wide open, such as the Darien Gap in Panama, where I've spent a lot of time down the Darien Gap since Biden was installed, and that all the architecture for the invasions is still there. By the way, all the United Nations guys are still there, and I think it's going to we're going to see that invasion continue. And the United States is itself being attacked by the United States, right? So we like to blame it on others, but our government is the one letting people in. Our government is the one that let the screwworms come back. Our government is the one knocking farmers off their farms, right? So it's not all about Iran. It's not all about Russia. Our government is toxic to us.
Vote harder, bro. In the midterms, vote Republican. It's just so corrupt. Andy Burham, the new UK puppet prime minister, has approved the continued use of British military bases by the US for what the UK calls defensive strikes against Iran, maintaining Keir Starmer's policy of Trump escalating the conflict. Burnham backed the decision after ministers agreed at Friday's COBRA meeting, or COBR meeting, to keep Diego Garcia and RAF Fairfort available for U.S. operations. The move means British bases are likely to support the current wave of U.S. operations. Again, for those just tuning in, CENTCOM announced right before we went on the air, we're bombing the hell out of Iran right now. OpenAI is preparing to expand into aardvark land by establishing a business development presence, marking its first local operations in the country, according to Ynet News. So that's a great reason to, pour your heart and soul out to OpenAI, because aardvarks are right there. So doesn't this make of it what you will? That's all I can say. You've been warned. U.S. and China to hold AI discussions in September ahead of President Xi of China's meeting with Trump in DC. The United States and China are scheduled to hold intergovernmental talks on artificial intelligence this September, led by Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent on the U.S. side, and discussions will focus on mitigating the global risks of advanced AI models. They're getting ready to turn the screws on public AI access. And so the censorship here now is coming, because obviously we have to beat China in the AI war, even though there are meetings about it and they're all laughing behind the scenes about how they're using it to bring about the scientific dictatorship and enslave the citizenry. But yeah, we have to give up all your rights, because we're in an AI race war, Cold War with China. So give up all your rights, when they're working together behind the scenes, laughing at Joe Blows in China and Joe Blows here in America. Ukraine reaches agreement to manufacture BAE system howitzers. Ukraine will manufacture L-119 howitzers in a deal that serves as a critical operational test for Kiev's ambitions to produce Western military hardware, including Patriot missiles. A Russia-guided strike hit residential areas in Zaporizhzhia, Ukraine, killing one person, injuring another, damaging the building. You can see right here. They're bombing the hell out of each other, Russia and Ukraine. UNICEF says attacks across Ukraine last week killed 2 children and injured at least 50. A UNICEF contracted warehouse near Kiev was heavily damaged on July 19th, destroying over 106,000 humanitarian items worth $3.9 million, including generators, water supplies, and hygiene kits for families affected by the war. It's an ongoing trend and theme we're seeing now, targeting civilian infrastructure. Ukraine blew up Russia Amazon. What are they, wild berries? Blew up one of their big logistics hubs. Zelensky fires Sarsky as commander-in-chief of Ukraine's armed forces, replaces him with Dept, who orchestrated infantry fighting vehicles ramming and driving over civilians in Mariupol in 2014. Here's that clip.
Я визначив, що новим головнокомандувачем Збройних сил України стане Михайло Драпатий. Разом з Михайлом, Євгенієм Хмарою, Павлом Палісою визначили, як має бути оновлена конфігурація Генерального штабу Збройних сил України. Факт, що Олександр...
So that was fun, right? That tank driving over that roadblock. That was pretty fun. No, it's quite horrific. The Russia-Ukraine war needs to end. It needs to end. On to Department of War. Meme of the day here. Ken Colvert, representative, posted this. He says, as chairman of the Defense Appropriations Subcommittee, I'm committed to initiatives like AP Fit that are part of our larger innovation agenda. I'm proud to have played a role in launching this program, which is delivering difference-making capabilities to our warfighters. And he's talking about this right here. AP Fit. Accelerate the procurement and fielding of innovative technologies. AP Fit program has proven its ability to bypass bureaucratic delays and deliver capabilities directly to the warfighter. By transitioning over 100 critical technologies to date, AP Fit ensures the Department of War maintains absolute battlefield dominance. Huh. Wonder why we can't seem to beat the Houthis even. We can't beat the Taliban? That was old. Okay. We're definitely not beating Iran. We'll get to the reports we'll get to the reports by our intelligence community. We need to end the Iran war now. Here's a war propaganda. More of this QBS out of the Department of War. No games. That's all they do is propaganda, lies, and games. Quite literally all we get out of this government. So all that Trump tough guy bullshit, it's falling on deaf ears. Oh, the quasi-secret drug war is raging in Mexico, Central, and South America. America's counter-cartel coalition at work. You can just go to U.S. Central Command and see they're constantly running drills and making busts. They haven't posted extrajudicial killings in about 2 weeks. Ever since the Venezuela earthquake, U.S. Southcom has not posted any of those. They at least have enough sense there that, oh yeah, we can't claim to be great humanitarians on one hand, helping out the Venezuelan earthquake victims, and on the other hand, whacking fishermen every other day and calling them narco drug trafficker terrorists with no friggin' evidence because we blew it up. You know what I mean? They at least got that much sense at Southcom. But just go to their page and you can see all these different Central South American countries on board with this drug war here now. America's counter-cartel coalition at work congratulates El Salvador's National Navy and all forces involved in fighting against narco-terrorism. And see, at least, I guess they wait and whack you off camera. See, they're smarter in El Salvador. Excuse me. But they're bragging they did this bust, right? This drug bust. They got these guys and a bunch of drugs. All right. That's what you're supposed to do, right? Allegedly. And then you take these guys and the drugs, and then you have a trial and all of that. Due process. And if you prove all the allegations, then they go to jail for a long time. Probably, what do they say? 1.36 tons of cocaine. Estimated value $34 million. Okay. Are these guys even going to make it to trial in El Salvador? I don't know. Probably not. But at least they're not just whacking them and saying, look, we killed the bad guys. It's ongoing there. So just something to be aware of. Very underreported, I would say. The quasi-secret public drug war raging right now. Marco Rubio says Venezuela's democratic transition will begin in early August. Secretary of State Little Marco reveals that Washington has already distributed $180 million in earthquake aid to Venezuela. Well, that's good of them considering we stole all their oil and gold and president. The United States is accelerating the transition process in Venezuela. This is an article out of El País. Washington has exercised special control over the Caribbean country since January 3rd, when we kidnapped their president, when it launched a military operation to capture Maduro and install Odysee Rodriguez as acting president. Throughout these months, supporters of opposition leader Machado, remember that goofy lady they gave the Nobel Prize to, and then she gave it to Trump after he threw a fit about it. Machado, who is living in exile abroad, have called for her return so that she can assume power, assuming that she won the 2024 election. Another U.S. puppet, their president of Venezuela. They're looking to make the transition. Little Marco has been tasked with managing relations between America and U.S. government. On Monday, yesterday, he announced that the process of democratic transition in Venezuela will begin in early August. So democratic transition to the State Department means installing a U.S. puppet dictator for democracy, of course. So, I mean, nobody should question any of this. Are they going to even have elections there? Fake or rigged up, however it may be, or totally legit above board. Of course, all elections are, as we know. Yeah, they don't even say. I guess they're just going to install her there. Maybe. The United States welcomes. Yeah, I don't know. They don't even say. I guess they'll just install puppet dictator, scream democracy in everybody's face as per usual, and we wouldn't have it any other way. Now, little Marco posts, the Trump administration and the international community will not stand by as the Morello-Ortega dictatorship deepens repression at home and manufactures instability that threatens U.S. national security. Ortega's pledge to abolish elections in Nicaragua proves his cowardness, and fear of the Nicaraguan people's will. Do we need to go ahead and fund some more rebels and do another illegal war in Nicaragua? Sounds like it's about time. Sounds like it's about time. And then, of course, that big report yesterday the State Department put out, it's laughable, claiming that Cuba is the capital of 21st century communism, and they're infiltrating America with Cuban communist agents. That's the claim in this big State Department report put out yesterday. They're trying to stir up the the new red scare here. Cuba, the capital of 21st century communism. Oh my gosh, that little island that's been under siege and sanctions by the United States for 60 years. Sanctions at least. Siege more recently with the naval blockade against Cuba. If that's all we got to worry about for communism taking over is Cuba, I think we're in pretty good shape. But of course, they're building the case of why we need to go ahead and take military action against Cuba, because the communists have infiltrated the highest levels of the United States government via Cuba. Sure. Back to more serious news here now. The U.S. State Department issues a global alert urging U.S. citizens worldwide to exercise increased caution amid the war in Iran and its repercussions. Yeah, they put targets on all of our backs. They have bunkers. We have targets on our backs now, with a bunch of Iranians and all the rest of their supporters waving the red flag of vengeance, as we showed you last week at the funeral proceedings for old man Khomeini that Trump whacked. So yeah, there's a bunch of pissed off Iranians, a bunch of pissed off other Muslims that were followers of old man Khomeini. And so thanks to Trump, all of us Americans, we got targets on our back now. And we don't have armed security running around everywhere. We don't have any of this. We're on our own, as we always have been. The government can't and won't keep you safe. You're on your own. But be aware. Be aware the State Department's putting out this warning. Well, I guess we should feel thankful they at least gave us a warning. Iran's edging up to their own war crimes here now, according to the Geneva Convention, targeting civilian infrastructure in Kuwait. Kuwaitis are now rationing electricity as repeated Iranian strikes hit the country's power and water infrastructure. Again, that's a war crime. So this thing's getting ugly. America's committing war crimes. Iran's committing war crimes. Iranian attacks have struck several facilities over 4 consecutive days, sparking fires and raising fears of outages during extreme summer heat, when temperatures can exceed 122 degrees Fahrenheit, 50 degrees Celsius, and air conditioning drives demand because many Kuwaiti distillation plants are integrated with power generation. Demand on the grid also threatens fresh water production. Authorities have urged residents to cut consumption, and officials say public compliance has already helped keep electricity use below protected levels and stabilized the grid. Kuwait reports Iranian strikes on power, water desalination. That's how you pronounce it, right? Desalination plants for 4th consecutive day. So now Joe Blow, Kuwaiti suffering out of this deal. Yeah, we're bombing them right now. We're bombing Iran right now. Washington Compost reports U.S. strikes unlikely to move Iran, intelligence reports say. U.S. intelligence sees no military solution against Iran. New U.S. intelligence assessments cited by the Washington Compost concludes that continued U.S. military strikes are unlikely to force Iran to soften its negotiating position or significantly alter its policies. U.S. intelligence agencies reportedly believe Washington and Tehran are now trapped in an indefinite state of neither peace nor war, with recurring cycles of escalation and temporary calm, according to current and former U.S. officials familiar with the assessment. The findings have already been briefed to the Trump administration, highlighting the growing dilemma facing Washington as the war drags on. The report, written primarily by the CIA, reportedly assesses that Iran's government retains significant resilience despite the loss of senior commanders and military assets in U.S. and aardvark land attacks. Yeah. A previous CIA assessment in May reportedly concluded that Iran could withstand a U.S. naval blockade for at least 3 to 4 months before facing severe economic hardship. Former U.S. intelligence official Jonathan Panikoff told the Post that the Trump administration appears to believe increasing military pressure will eventually make Tehran more flexible, but said that assessment is almost certainly incorrect. He went on to say that Iran's leadership has repeatedly demonstrated that regime survival remains its top priority and that Tehran is willing to absorb substantial military and economic costs. The report also notes that both Washington and Tehran have continued to signal openness to diplomacy through intermediaries despite ongoing hostilities and retaliatory attacks. U.S. officials cited by the Post also said they increasingly see internal tensions within the Iranian leadership between officials viewed by Washington as pragmatists and hardliners, particularly within the IRGC. Overall, U.S. intelligence reportedly sees no clear path to a decisive military victory, warning that the conflict is likely to continue through repeated flare-ups, negotiations, and renewed strikes. And as we reported and continue to report, debunking Trump's claims that Iran was going to nuke us in 2 weeks, the U.S. intelligence community told them, and so did the State Department, before we struck Iran, that they were not an imminent nuclear threat to America. So they don't, why even have all this giant intelligence apparatus spying with cameras up everybody's rear end? They don't even listen to the intelligence assessment. They're just like, bomb them away. The Department of War is a business. Give me $1.5 trillion. The guys that are supposed to know are telling you this is bogus. Will he listen? They won't listen. They won't listen. We need a 25th Amendment Trump's ass. He's unfit to serve. Here now. End the Iran war now as we're bombing them. End it. Stop it. Even Christian Zionist piece of trash, Mike Johnson, Speaker of the House, says we've got to wrap it up. We've got to wrap it up. Even this piece of crap, Mike Johnson, he was asked at a press conference earlier today at what point he will move to use congressional power to check President Trump's war in Iran. Johnson pointedly ended his reply by saying, we've got to wrap it up in Iran. So when you've lost this piece of garbage, you pretty much lost. You've pretty much lost. But defiant Trump, we're bombing him right now as this show's live. So he needs to be removed from office. 25th Amendment. He's unfit for duty. He's lost his damn mind. He doesn't listen to Congress. He doesn't listen to the intelligence community. So Congress needs to do their job and remove his ass. More on this. I think we touched on it briefly. Why Iran's missile strikes are becoming more accurate. Reported by Kazim News. They say here, U.S. regional surveillance and interception networks have been significantly degraded, with much of the monitoring, tracking, and engagement infrastructure built around Iran over the past decade reportedly put out of action. Iran has reportedly gained new access to satellite imagery, allowing it to identify targets with greater precision and assess strike results after impact. The destruction of U.S. early warning radars in the region has reduced detection capabilities, including systems such as the strategic and FPS 132 radar in Qatar, which reportedly has a detection range of up to 5,000 kilometers. Patriot air defense systems are considered less effective against Iran's newer missile arsenal, having been designed primarily to counter older generations of Iranian missiles. Iran has increasingly relied on maneuverable hypersonic projectiles in recent attacks, which combined high speed with the ability to alter their flight path, making interception by systems such as the Patriot significantly more difficult. According to Tassim, these factors have collectively made the routes taken by Iranian missiles safer than ever before, contributing to the growing effectiveness of strikes against U.S. targets in the region. It's a disaster. It's a freaking disaster. But it's all for the aardvarks. Aardvark Land Finance Minister Smotrich said Aardvark Land has no interest in joining the aggression on Iran, calling the current U.S.-led confrontation the most correct and best situation for Aardvark Land. Well, everything for them. You know what I mean? That's why we founded this country. Right? Sure it is. That's what they say. That's what all these traitors say. We wouldn't even have this country if it wasn't for aardvarks. All the founding fathers had little hats on when they signed the Declaration and the Constitution. It's just beyond the pale, man. The U.S. Aardvark Land and Lebanon are exploring several options to disarm Hezbollah. One proposal would have the U.S. train, equip, and vet elite Lebanese army units, which would gradually replace Aardvark Land forces in southern Lebanon before eventually attempting to disarm Hezbollah if necessary. Other options include having Syria help cut off Hezbollah's supply routes or relying on continued Aardvark Land military operations to weaken the group, according to the Wall Street Journal. They're all up in Lebanon. Cradle reporting today, citing Aardvark Land reconnaissance drones. And you could see deep up in Lebanon right there. Excuse me. Aardvark Land is not giving up anything. Residents head to U.S.-backed pilot zones in South Lebanon. Lebanese security sources and citizens say the U.S., quote, pilot zone plan is evidence that Aardvark Land intends to continue occupying the South. Well, they've all said it as well. Scores of displaced Lebanese civilians made their way back to southern towns designated by Washington as pilot zones early today, as Lebanese armed forces deployed in the town of Zawatar al-Garbaya. And Aardvark Land journalists previously claimed that Tel Aviv would begin a, quote, limited withdrawal today as part of the U.S. plan, but local residents returning to the south cast doubt on Aardvark Land's intention to withdraw. Two of the so-called pilot zones were never occupied by Aardvarkland forces to begin with. Locals told Al Jazeera earlier today the inclusion of these villages is evidence that Aardvarkland is in fact not giving up anything despite the framework agreement, and is instead able to remain in the areas it has occupied, one villager said. Sneaky aardvarks, you don't say? Oh, breaking agreements? You don't say. Shocking, I know. Two Lebanese security sources told Al Jazeera the same, while stressing that two of the, quote, pilot zones are not occupied. They're like, yeah, we're gonna leave that area we're not even in. Good job. But try going there and we'll bomb the hell out of you. I added that part. But that's a continuing that we're seeing, continuing trend. So it's a bunch of BS. There's no ceasefire. They're not withdrawing. They're taking all that land and more. Local residents indicate that an explosive device detonated targeting a Lebanese Red Cross convoy that had entered southern Lebanon earlier today. As the Lebanese army deployed to the town of Zawatar al-Garbaya earlier today, Aardvarkland occupation forces opened fire near the troops. So Lebanese army is going to go regulate Hezbollah, but Aardvarkland's going to go ahead and shoot at the Lebanese army. For the third time, Aardvarkland forces targeted the Ali al-Tahir highlands in southern Lebanon with artillery shelling. Concurrently, a massive explosion was carried out by Aardvarkland occupation forces in the area. And you can see the demolition bombing campaign is continuing despite this New Deal. Yeah, they're leveling the joint. Aardvark occupation forces target southern Lebanon. More images. Yep. They're leveling the joint systematically. Aardvarkland occupation forces are deliberately setting fires to residential homes in southern Lebanese town of Tal Asa. Yeah, that's kind of their thing, is they're a bunch of arsonists as well. I don't know, Patagonia, occupied West Bank, southern Lebanon, burning residential homes. According to local reports, Aardvarkland occupation forces deliberately blew up a large commercial center on the outskirts of southern Lebanon, town of Kuwin, near Antata. The complex housed a supermarket, electrical appliance, and carpet stores, as well as a center selling local products and traditional provisions. So, yeah, they're taking out all civilian infrastructure. So you're not going to be able to live there because there is no infrastructure, and they may just shoot you in the face for the hell of it. Let's see. On to Gaza. Genocide there continues. Aardvarkland confirms it is walling off half of Gaza it controls. The Aardvarkland military has built more than 23 kilometers, 14 miles of earthen barriers cutting through Gaza, physically dividing the roughly 50% of the territory it occupies from the crowded coastal strip where Palestinians have been forced to live, according to Planet Labs satellite imagery reported by the Associated Press. And so here's some maps so we can see. They're now, it's a steady push. It's a steady push. They're pushing them all into the Mediterranean Sea here now, the ones they don't whack. Berm network. And so they're building up these berms. So, oh, you try to go this way? Oh, we see you coming over the berm and whack you. And they're pushing, pushing, pushing. They're going to take it all, as they've repeatedly said. You can see right there. The berms, building up these berms. And they'll stand on top of that berm and whack all the children that way, as we've tragically become accustomed to. The UN Human Rights Office says Aardvark land forces killed at least 57 Palestinians in Gaza between just this last week. But there's a ceasefire, Sam. They killed 57 this last week between July 3rd and July 20th, including 6 children and 8 women. It said 34 of the 57 people killed. Far from Aardvark land imposed yellow line, raising concerns of continued violation of international humanitarian law, war crimes, and other possible atrocity crimes. Well, they've already said international law is antiseptic, and we don't give a damn what you say, because Big Brother America will sanction and possibly drone you in defense of genocide. 6 members of the Al-Masri family, parents and 4 children, were killed. They killed an entire family. They killed an entire family here now. And we do, yesterday, somebody was saying, show the pictures. I'll show you the pictures of the dead family. Not of them blowing up, just because I hate those pictures. But they whacked them. And then their children, they whacked them. And there you go. They killed that whole family. The markings on the shroud read child martyr. Amri Faris Al-Masri, charred body. So I'll show you this. They're wrapped up. They're not, you're not going to see the, that's what it says on the, it says child martyr there in Arabic. 6-year-old. 6-year-old. They killed a boy, 13, Naeem, Furial, girl, 11, Salma, girl, 9, and Amara, girl, 6 years old. And here's their bodies wrapped up. They killed the whole family. More reports going through the different killings. A bloody day in Gaza. So since this morning, so we'll just say in the past 24 hours, 13 Palestinians dead. So the Palestinian Ministry of Religious Endowment says aardvark land settlers have carried out 45 attacks on mosques across the occupied West Bank since the start of 2026. 5 mosques were set on fire and 5 others were partially demolished or damaged. Palestinian journalist Hassim reports that aardvark land settlers set fire to his home and the homes of 2 other neighbors in a rampage attack July 19th in the village of Al Tuwini in the occupied West Bank. Aardvark land ultra-Zionist settlers also set fire to his family's vehicle, a dairy factory, and a mosque. Here's some footage and still images of these arsonists, the ultra-Zionist settlers. Burnt their car, attacked their house, or I believe that's a mosque, burned their car up. Aardvark land seizes 1,300 acres north of Jerusalem for Settler Road. Aardvark land authorities issued a military order seizing 5,283 dumas, about 1,317 acres of land belonging to the town of Jabba, north of occupied Jerusalem, under the pretext of military purposes. According to the Palestinian news agency WAFA, the Jerusalem governorate said the land will be used to build a settler road running from Route 60 near Jabba checkpoint to the separation wall beside the Nabai Yaqub settlement. Officials said the order is part of a broader push to expand settlement road networks and cut Palestinian towns off from surrounding land. And here's a little map showing us that. They're taking it all. Again, the Greater Aardvark Land Project. They're taking it all. The Jerusalem Committee of the Popular Conference for Palestinians Abroad warns that extremist aardvark land settler groups are calling for what they describe as the largest ever storming of the Al-Aqsa Mosque on Thursday, July 23rd, coinciding with the so-called anniversary of the destruction of the temple. The committee said the calls mark a dangerous escalation aimed at aardvarking the Al-Aqsa and imposing new facts on the ground through repeated incursions, attacks, and the performance of aardvark land religious rituals, a la satanic, dark occultist, Talmudic rituals. They won't say that in this drop side article. I will, because that's exactly what they're doing. Aardvark religious rituals in the mosque compound, prayers, prostrations, singing, blowing the shofar under aardvark land military protection. Again, they're trying to provocateur these Muslims by desecrating their third highest holy site, the Al-Aqsa Mosque there, by doing all of this provocation. They're trying to get them to make a move, and then that, of course, will be excuse for wiping them all out. Well, they're damn terrorists, you see. They made a move on us after we did our Talmudic dark occultist satanic ritual on their third highest holy site, the Alaska Mosque. As we await part of the end of days, end times, BS Aardvark prophecies, they need to remove the Alaska Mosque to go ahead and build Solomon's third temple there to bring about their return of their evil Messiah. And the Christian Zionists believe it's going to bring about the return of Jesus as well. So they're instigating with everything they got a conflict with these Muslims, and that'll be an excuse to go ahead and wipe them out and genocide them even that much more, you see. Because there's no even claim of Hamas in the occupied West Bank. All right, that's all the reporting I got for today. Let's pray for peace as we're bombing Iran, as this show's live. Let's go to Iran International. Latest headline, U.S. completes 11th night of strikes on Iran as IRGC vows operations to continue. It's going to be the same routine. End it now, Trump. End it now, Congress. Remove his ass. Trump's not listening. Trump's not listening to our own intelligence telling them this is a no-win. Stop it. Congress, Mike Johnson saying we need to stop. Do your job, Congress. 25th Amendment, Trump's ass now in this shit. Official media reports attacks in Ilam and Kurdistan provinces. Trump approves Saudi civilian nuclear deal. I did see that report. They're saying this is some kind of backdoor deal that takes safeguards off. And Saudi Arabia now with this can develop their own nuclear weapon. But I thought we can't let these crazy Muslims have nuclear weapons. Yeah, Saudi Arabia, it's fine. You know what I mean? It's just absurd. Didn't Saudi Arabia attack us on 9/11? U.S. completes 11th night of strikes against Iran. That was quick because they barely announced like a half hour before we went live. They were beginning the attack. So they carried off those attacks in about 2 hours. I guess that's increased efficiency. But you can expect a retaliation against our assets in the region as per usual. And we're seeing increased precision of Iranian strikes on our bases in the region. Now this next goofball thing, that Aardvark lying intelligence is, they're trying to goad us into attacking this Pickaxe Mountain, and the thing's like made out of granite. They're like, that's where they're hiding their nukes. Really? Sending us on wild goose chases around Iran looking for nuclear fairy dust. They need to remove Trump. He's not fit for duty. He's lost his damn mind. Al Jazeera latest headlines. U.S. bombs Iran for 11th straight night. Hegseth says war has cost $37.5 billion. So about half, or even about half of what I've seen estimates well over 100 billion at this point. We spent a bunch of money on the latest bombing run, right? Sure we did. Two blasts heard at Bashar city housing Iran's only nuclear power plant. Iran holds funeral for 32 children killed in Minab school strike. Air defenses activated in Tehran due to hostile threats. Ma'am Danny says New York City lacks legal power to arrest Netanyahu under ICC warrant. So a lot of talk out of him, no action, obviously. There. All right, friends, thank you for joining us on this Tuesday edition of Weaponized News. Let's go over to Odysee channel. See if we have anyone over there in the chat. Shout out to viewers on Odysee. Thank you for tuning in over there. Shout out to Huffman, Highland, Gurr. Who's this? Testicles. You do a good job. Oh, sorry for testicles. Well, thank you. That's a new one in the chat. Fat Bob says, unknown Trump administration people frauds. No way. Honest brokers like Biden, Mayorkas, Blinken, our pals. Exactly. Oh, man. Oh, Fat Bob, I did watch that video you sent me about Scientology and the whole conundrum about if the IRS takes their tax exempt status, then they got to start looking at all the other religions, and that's why they're hiding under the cover. What was it? The Hernandez ruling, I believe. I have to look into that a little bit more. I did a little bit of research about it, and they try to explain it away. But I did watch that video, and I appreciate it, Fat Bob, about the tax and IRS stuff. The claim is that the IRS is breaking the law by not enforcing the Hernandez Supreme Court ruling, right? But if they did enforce the law on Scientology, then all these other religions, the big ones, then they would have to revoke their tax exempt status as well, and they don't want to go there. So the whole thing is a giant fraud, as you would expect. Let's see. John says that it was easier to indoctrinate young recruits when we had the godless Soviets to hate. I once met a Russian man who served in Kamchatka. During the same time, I was stationed across the water on Atka. It was easier to hate him then? Yeah. I never question anything, Sam. In fact, I make sure all my papers are in order before they get there. Yeah. Of course, Sam, smelly butler types shall never die. Did all the damage then, woke up to save FDR, who poor mouth ruined some folks to pay Paul well into the future. The thing we have to fear, Sam, is fear itself. How true those words that have echoed throughout time for its total dumbness. Oh, man. John says, yeah, the Iranians had the moral high standing, and now they are behaving like aardvarks and Trump's America. Paul Greg Roberts lamented at least twice during the past 2 months. Yeah, I was looking at that a little bit. Some analysts are saying that Iran is not directly whacking downtown Tel Aviv right now because it is a better military strategy to target U.S. strategic assets in the region, i.e. our radar systems, early warning systems. It makes sense. It makes sense like that. And Aardvark land's not directly attacking Iran. It's just us now. We're out there on our own for our greatest ally. So some analysts are claiming we'll get there after they degrade our assets in the region to the point where we can't defend Aardvark land, I guess is the point. And so if you look at some of the targets they're hitting, it kind of makes sense that way. But again, I do believe at the top levels, they are all in together. What did John says? Brendan O'Connell insists there is a city of London control in Iran leadership. He asserts that they have fat Swiss bank accounts. Yeah. Yeah, and an effing pyramid with an eye. What is that doing in an ostensibly Muslim country? The secret societies are above, right? Joe Blow religions, obviously. The Iranians are not Arabs, and there is no love lost between the two groups. The US and UK have exploited the bad blood for years, keeping them fighting. No, Sam, Saudi Arabia did not attack us on 9/11. It was Aardvark land with the cooperation of the Saudis. The Aardvarks always try to hang their false flags on Arabs, like they tried when they attacked the Liberty with the goal of blaming Egypt. Yeah, those are. I don't disagree. I don't disagree. Was my comment invisible? Let's see. Oh, sorry, Huffman. Huffman says, tell Ruckus to check out the Iranian parliament building. Yeah, I've seen it. It's a pyramid. We'll bring that up next show and take a look at it. All right, guys. Thank you guys for... have you seen Iran's parliament building? Yeah. Looks like a big... it's a big pyramid, right? I don't know why we're fighting with them, bro. Seems like we're all on the same team, right? Seems like we're all on the same team here. Well, of course, it's to get rid of the Joe Blows, because there is a global depopulation program going on top of all this. All right, friends, thank you for tuning in on the Odysee and keeping that chat lively and informative as always. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in on X, Kick, BitChute, Substack, Rumble, and YouTube. Let's go over to those chats. Okay. Robert on the YouTube. MAGA goons, keep your heads in the sand and your lips around the orange mushroom. Denver must not go outside. I missed that comment from Denver. I don't know why it cut off. Let's see here. Denver says, your weak attempts at Agitprompt and Hasbro are powerless against me, bro. Oh my gosh. America is an embarrassment thanks to Chomo in Chief, Robert said on the YouTube. United States of Aardvark land is a disaster. Keep your sovereignty and let Aardvarks fight their own wars. This guy who doesn't have all the facts needs to think before speaking. Denver, what the F is Hasbro? Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Go listen to Salem Radio Network, bro. You know what I mean? Instead of trolling my chat on YouTube. Hassan Parker is a terrorist and he hate America. He is a radical Hamas Hezbollah supporter. Bro, work on your English and grammar there. I think he's a Fed, so how you like that? I think he's a Fed provocateur, and he's not going to jail either. Denver setting them straight there. Thank you, Denver, for that. You're a liberal troll. Never believe CNN. It's a liberal Obama network. They're like, stop using the big hard words, Denver. You're being mean to the. I don't know if they're trolls. Maybe they're true believers. Maybe look up some of the words Denver's saying and you would get a better understanding. I'm just throwing it out there for your own education. Yeah. Thank you, Denver. In the YouTube chat, schooling them up there. They're not even understanding the words he's using. Oh my gosh. Thank you, MH. Says I do appreciate the compliments there. You do a great job, my brother, Weaponized reporter. Thank you very much for that compliment. We're doing the best we can here. The history books will not be nice to Trump, methinks. Rucka says, It's getting real bad real quick. And once the Democrats get back in control of the Congress, it's going to be just never-ending hearings, investigations, impeachments, all for bogus stuff, though, right? Maybe they'll throw out some real stuff they're not tied to because they're both part of the same organized crime syndicate known as your government. They will put on a show about it. And I believe some of them genuinely are out to get Trump. And he has it coming. I mean, Trump has it coming. Warfighter reminds me of the last Starfighter, just more cringe, Mysterious says. Yeah. We stole their president. We did. We stole their oil, their gold, and their president. Shout out to Sean on the Facebook. Thank you for tuning in, Sean. See, there you go. Appreciate you too for listening, Sean. Thank you. Due process is when they leave you alone because you are a wasp who voted for Reagan. Max says. I guess so. That's your due process. Man. When Democrats were in power, they didn't start unnecessary wars, tariffs. They didn't steal Venezuela's oil. They didn't cause fuel and grocery prices to go out of control. Not like this. They did plenty of their own shenanigans, but not as bad as this. Let's see. Mysterious says, hell is other people suggests that our interactions with others can lead to feelings of alienation and dependence, making them feel like a form of hell. Yeah. Kuwait will have no water. If they keep bombing them, they won't. And I ran so far away. And I ran so far away. Yeah. I would play you all a bunch of great songs, but they tag me for copyright, and so I can't do it. They don't recognize transformative media on YouTube, fair use. It's not. It's AIs, right? So AIs see that you played and who even know? We don't even know. They don't even have legitimate copyright on half this stuff. It's just BS, right? But it doesn't matter because YouTube will flag you though and pull your video and say copyright violation, and you're done. You know what I mean? And it's all just AI made up BS. I'm clearly creating transformative media through fair use and have every right to do that. It doesn't matter. It's not on YouTube. You understand? I wish I could play a bunch of songs on here. YouTube's just simply not going to allow it. They stole everything. They even stole history, Denver said. Word. Pamela on the Rumble. We're out of WMD weapons, so end the war. So end the Iran war to focus on America's with Obama's 1033 program transfers of excess military equipment to civilian law enforcement. I agree. Why do we have freaking MRAP tanks, armored military vehicles on our streets? I'm in a little town, Clovis, California, over here, right? A suburb of Fresno. Population 100,000. They have a Christmas parade, whatever parade, right? And they roll these freaking tanks down the street and everybody's cheering. I'm like, bro, that's tyranny. And people just can't see it. People can't see it. It's extremely frustrating and disturbing, to say the least. Albert says Donald Trump, the best president. For what country? Not for America. Maybe for maybe Aardvarkland, best president. He's bragged he's king of Aardvarkland. He's bragged he'll win. I forget all the brags, but yeah, not for America, bro. They're in there trolling me, saying how big of an idiot I am, but yet they stay there on the chat. So I don't know. Sorry for wasting your time here. Then go find a clownfluencer channel that loves the government, because this weaponized news ain't it for you, bro. Sorry to tell you. One pyramid to rule the thrall. Imagine actually being an American and literally laughing stock of the world. Yeah, 85 to 90% of the world hates our guts. This is engineered by design. We continue to cover. We're in a new era, a new world order. It's a soft power transfer at the very highest levels to the east, engineered by, who knows, Trump's a puppet actor in the WWE Hall of Fame, for crying out loud. So he's playing his role in this new world order, new era power transfer to the east and destroying American neoliberal political capital around the world. So I'm at the 4th of July parade near here. The big truck of the parade said 250 years of freedom for British Empire, not freedom from. Wow. All right, and we'll end it there. All right, let's pray for peace. Let's pray for peace and end this eye for an eye, tit for tat, retaliation against retaliation. The only way out is just end it. End it, withdraw our troops, withdraw our Navy, Tell Iran, do whatever the hell you're going to do. None of our business. We're out, bro. End it now. Peace. Let's pray for peace. As always, everybody do your own research. Peace, love, and freedom. Speak out and take action. Have a great rest of your Tuesday evening. And we'll be back here on Wednesday for more Weaponized News. Pray for peace.